Live service games. In the AAA gaming industry, it's difficult, if not outright impossible, to not hear about live service games at the moment. Most AAA companies are at least dabbling in them, whilst others like Squeenix and Ubisoft seem to be going all in on them, planning out major title after major title under this model. And yet they keep failing. Avengers is getting put into maintenance mode, Babylon's Fall was DOA, Gotham Knights is a failure, Battle Royales are dropping just as quickly, and so the question arises, why? Why are all these games getting announced, launching, and then collapsing in the blink of an eye, at least by industry standards? Even Halo Infinite is now in chaos, and it's Halo. Even bad releases for Halo usually turn out decent in the end, but this does not look to be the same case. So what's going on here? What's the common denominator? Well, it's that all of these games are being developed as live service games. Now, as for what I'm doing here, yelling into the void of the internet about this, it's because I was watching a video about live service games. I can't remember who it was from. It might have been Extra Punctuation or Cold Takes or something else I'm just not remembering right now. All I remember was the person making a joke, describing live service games as a genre before correcting themselves and saying business model instead. Now, this sentence alone got the old gears in this rat's head turning. And then it hit me. That's the problem with these games. They're not games made under a certain genre. They're not action games, adventure games, RPGs or anything like that happen to have the live service business model attached to them. They're live service games, a business model as a genre. So what do I mean when I use that phrase, a business model as a genre? Well, it's mainly used to explain the way a game is developed. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this you know what a genre is. I would hope you're not brain dead. Action, adventure, RPG, strategy, etc. It's the very foundation of a game, the core, the heart of the game, and how everything built on top of it functions. Action games typically have set pieces and combos or things like that. Adventure games are about exploration, strategy games are all about planning and tactics, etc, etc. And a business model is simply the way the developers make money off the game. So they can eat and have a house and stuff. Nowadays, games can come with one or multiple different business models attached to them. There's the single purchase model of just buy the game, get the game done, aka what any normal human would expect. But then there's also new ones cropping up. MMOs expanded the business model space through subscriptions and eventually DLC in the form of expansion packs. Although it wasn't really DLC, since at the time you had to actually go out and buy a disc that had the DLC on it, but you get the idea. This idea got adopted by the rest of the AAA industry at the time, essentially making mini expansions to non-MMO games, like map packs for Halo and COD, or the questline DLCs for the Elder Scrolls. And speaking of Elder Scrolls...
Oh no!
Yeah, that's when things started to change. Companies slowly began selling smaller and smaller things as DLC for cheaper and cheaper prices until eventually we got the microtransaction business model, selling a large number of smaller minimally priced extras to continue funding the studio over time. This allowed the free-to-play model of game to thrive using in-game item shops and things like that, as well as allowing games to avoid the subscription model that people started to grow wary of. But, of course, AAA companies are never content with the insane amount of money they're taking in, so they started introducing something new. With the expansion of constant internet connections, games started to get altered after release through online updates. Initially, this was used as a way for the devs to fix things they hadn't gotten to yet. I mean, really, on the original Xbox, the updates were just to patch out bad bugs. But people realized that you could do more with this update system. You could actively, continuously add more stuff into the game over the course of years, making the games last way longer than they otherwise would have. Again, MMOs were already way ahead of everybody else on this. But non-MMOs like Team Fortress 2 started to see massive success through this model as well. So everybody wanted in on it now. And this is where we begin to enter the era of the live service business model. Companies will essentially make games with the intention to keep developing the project long after release through content updates and DLCs. Destiny is an example of a franchise that saw massive success with this model early on, functioning as a sort of MMO light. Free-to-play games were naturally built for this as well, with the biggest success story in that field being, of course, Fortnite with the battle passes. The constant barrage of new content updates and new items to buy in the store has allowed Fortnite to be relevant far past any reasonable expiration date, especially since it started out as a spin-off to chase a genre trend. But that's the thing. Fortnite is still in a genre. The Battle Royale genre, to be specific. I know some people might argue it's a subgenre, but whatever. But with its success, AAA companies started getting greedy. They wanted the success without the genre, just the business model. And that's where we are now, with AAA games being built with the live service model replacing the idea of the genre, becoming the very core the games are built upon. Let's take Avengers as an example, since it's hit the news recently that it's going into life support soon. Oh boy. What genre is Avengers? What mechanical tropes guide the very foundation of it? Well, the Steam page says it's an action-adventure RPG. I don't count superhero, that's not mechanical, and multiplayer isn't a genre. But action-adventure RPG, how does that work? Well, it has some RPG mechanics, like stats, equipable items, skills, etc. But at the same time, it says action-adventure, which is usually about exploration and a focus on combat encounters and a real-time third-person combat. Sure, Avengers has all of these things, but none of them are really the core of the game, are they? Not really, I don't think. Each of those genres have been boiled down to their bare minimums. The RPG mechanics are mostly just equipping things to increase stat numbers, so you don't get totaled by the next enemy encounter since the enemies just level with you. So even then, it doesn't even really matter. You can't have many skills on you at any given time either, at least judging from the gameplay I've seen. And the action-adventure part? It's mostly just basic exploration and combo mechanics. There's nothing truly unique or special about the core gameplay that you can't get from any other game. There's nothing to it. It's the most generic form of action-adventure RPG you can possibly think of, that just happens to have a Marvel Avengers skin thrown on. But why is that? Why boil everything down to their barest minimum? Well, it's to support the live service model. Everything is built to support a gameplay loop just engaging enough that you hopefully stick around for the next content and cash shop update. Because the longer you play their game, the more likely you are to cave into pressure and buy microtransactions. That's why all of these games feel so hollow, soulless, empty. Anthem, Avengers, Darktide, Babylon's Fall, Gotham Knights. The reason they all feel so bare bones and empty at launch is because they're designed that way. They are bare bones and empty. The point is to try and make you cave into pressure and buy goodies from the cash shop by getting you invested. They're trying to pressure you through a sunk cost fallacy to make you keep playing until the next update where you can buy more stuff. This is what I mean by a business model as a genre. The features of a well-made game are built to support the genre foundation. And if your foundation, your genre, is just a way to generate money, then everything built on top of that will exist for the sole purpose of trying to suck money out of consumers for as long as possible. Most genres are built with a form of play in mind, some fundamental way to play the game that certain people will find enjoyable. And so you will build mechanics on top of that genre to enhance that gameplay, make it feel unique, make it feel engaging, that sort of thing. Again, action games will usually add combo meters, or a lot of different methods of taking out enemies, or new weapons and things like that. RPGs will add a bunch of skill trees and stats and equipment and classes to work with, things to enhance that feeling that you're playing a role in the game, because it's a role-playing game. But if your genre, your very foundation, is just a business model, then everything built on top of it is going to exist for the sole purpose of supporting the business model, because that's what the game is. It exists purely as a way of trying to get more money out of you as possible. So the game is intentionally left with minimal gameplay and overall content, promising that more is coming soon if you stick around for just long enough that you get invested and feel like spending more money. It's removing the soul, the art, from video games in favor of raw greed. Thankfully, however, these games are beginning to fail left and right. Sure, consumers will buy a new Madden or FIFA every year, and that's disappointing, but they at least have gameplay people enjoy. Players grow very bored of these new live service games very quickly, uninstall them, and then move on, leaving them to collect dust and eventually get shut down. None of them are engaging enough or have enough content to keep them playing long enough for that next content update or cash shop change, which is what leads to games like Avengers being left in the dust the moment they launch until a year or two later and they get shut down. Hopefully, eventually, the AAA industry will learn that this isn't going to work and they need to get back to making actual fully fledged games again. I say hopefully because I'm not too sure about some of these companies. Looking at you, Ubisoft. This has been TheRatMan, and I will see you all later.